What I have here in my hands is Europe's equivalent to the PVS-14. Today I'm here to do an overview of the Thales LUCIE. The LUCIE was originally developed for the French military in the mid to late 90s. LUCIE is actually an acronym in French that stands for Economic Compact Intensified Goggle. The IE has been carried over into other night vision products by Thales over the rest of the years. So if you see other brands, they're all going to end in IE. So today I want to showcase this because you don't see these very often. I only know of less than 20 of these in the United States, let alone having access to one myself. I purchased this originally for a German impression, which we'll get over some accessories that I have here as well. The first thing I want to demonstrate though is the size in comparison to a PVS-14. As you can see, the LUCIE itself overall is about a little more than half the length. Of course, much bigger profile up front, but the side itself is fairly short. This is the daylight filter. However, this particular one doesn't have a pinhole through it, so I just use it as a cover to make sure that I'm not damaging the NVG during the day. If we flip that off, we can see the objective lens. Unlike a PVS-14, which uses an internal retaining ring to limit the rotation as you adjust it, the LUCIE actually uses a tab mounted to the outside of the objective lens and the housing itself to restrict how much rotation it has. Moving further onto the front, you can see this bulge point in the housing. That is where the image intensifier sits. We'll get on more on that when we take this apart. Right here, we can see two little glass or plastic windows. One of these is the infrared illuminator used for very small admin tasking. The other one is a highlight shutoff. So if you are exposed to a huge amount of light, the device will automatically shut itself off. This is very similar to how a PVS-14 has the two little viewports in the front as well. This rubber button here, if you press in while the NVG is on, you get a momentary burst of the IR light. And as soon as you release it, it shuts back off. Right here we have the on-off switch. It is actually slotted sort of like a pathway that you can't automatically just twist it in each of the positions. You have to press it inwards in order to turn it on, and then the switch itself settles into a recess in order to prevent it from being accidentally turned off. If you press it in and you continue to rotate it, you will have constant on of the IR illuminator. From the IR illuminator, you can quickly shift it back off into the on position, but like I said previously, it still prevents it from switching off on you. Moving over here to the side, we have the power supply. This is where a single AA battery is positioned in order for the device to work. Molded into the housing, we have a minus and plus orientation for the battery. The cap itself just simply screws off using at least one thread of coarse thread. This is different than PVS-14, which actually has multiple threads for the battery cap. As you can see, like a PVS-14, the battery cap is tethered. However, instead of using a wire, it uses this nylon rope piece. On the back here, we can see the two ocular lenses. They are adjustable as far as your corrective vision. From the top here, you can see all the indication markings. And there is a small little, it looks like a sideways minus sign or a vertical line, as most people would refer to it as. That indicates the position of where the diopter is adjusted to. The diopters on both sides are adjustable from 0 to -5 and +3 for both sides. There is unfortunately no way to adjust the interpupillary distance, which is normal on a PVS-7 or other dual tube night vision. This is strictly one interpupillary distance. On the last side here, we don't really have anything. There is one slot here that you would normally tie the day cap tether to. However, I had trouble threading it back through, and instead I just tied it to the other cord. At the top here, we can see the mounting interface. Unlike a US night vision device or a US developed night vision device, this is sort of an inverted dovetail. The receiving end is mounted onto the NVG and the shoe itself is on the mounts. This is unfortunately a very fragile point, and you can actually see that bits of it are already breaking off on this brand new housing that I have here. Later versions of the LUCIE would actually make this a replacement component and made out of a metal material, most likely aluminum or titanium. On the bottom here, you can see this flathead screw. This is the purge screw. There's a small little O-ring in it, and that's where you nitrogen purge the device. Normally there would be a label here that denoted information, however this one has been blacked out. Next up, let's take this apart. The housing is split into two halves. You can see there's a slight angle line right here where the parting between the housing is. It's secured by 3 Phillips head screws on the front and the back of the housing. Unless you are extremely experienced with night vision, I highly recommend you do not disassemble it unless you know what you're doing. Okay, now we can take a look to see inside of how a Thales LUCIE works. The two halves of the housing are secured together with two small wires that connect to the power supply to the circuit board. Light comes in through the objective lens on this side and hits a 90-degree mirror. There it comes in through the front of the image intensifier. The LUCIE uses a 10130 style image intensifier, which is the same as the one used on a PVS-14. This means it is an inverted tube and cannot be readily swapped out with a 10160. It also uses these 2 pins right here with wires in order to connect and drive power to the image intensifier itself. After the image intensifier, the image goes to this portion of the housing right here, which is called a beam splitter. It directs the 2 images and splits them apart in order to go to each of the 2 eyepiece lenses. There's another set of mirrors in order to direct them back out the back of the housing. Relatively simple in concept, however much more complicated compared to your typical PVS-14. The tube inside of it is a Photonis DEP style tube. So this is a generation 2+ tube, which is fairly common inside of Europe. On the actual back face of the image tube, we actually have this wave spring in order to provide tension and keep the image intensifier up against the back end of the mirror for the objective lens. Lastly, the 2 halves of the housings are secured by a very long O-ring situated inside of a groove on the front half of the housing. This is similar to how a PVS-14 has a small O-ring between the power supply and the image housing itself. Now let's put this back together and take a look to see what this is like in the dark. Of the LUCIE NVG. Right now I'm inside of a garage. I can just barely see 2 little sensor lights, and there's some light coming in through the window, but I have 2 targets or 2 like backboards set up for target shooting, kind of just for testing guns and stuff in here, and I cannot see them at all. I might be able to barely see the one on the left. However, if I put the NVG in front here, you can see them much clearer, of course. However, not exactly the greatest tube in this. This is a Photonis XD4, so it's a generation 2+ tube, so it's not quite generation 3, but still fairly reasonable, all things considered. I'd probably put this on par with an Omni 4, maybe Omni 5, as far as what I'm seeing, at least in comparison to other tubes that I've looked at. So it's not bad, all things considered, but it could definitely be a lot better. This is also with the IR light off, as with the IR light on. Of course, the image gets a lot better because the tube doesn't have to work anywhere near as hard, but you can see definitely a lot better with the IR light on. And of course, without, it's definitely difficult. We're not dealing with a ton of light in here, all things considered, but it's not bad considering it's a Gen 2 Plus tube. So the first accessory that I want to talk about here is the helmet mount. Now there are a couple different variations and versions of this depending on what helmet you end up using. This particular one is mounted to a replica TCA in order for me to use it for KSK kit. The mount itself does have controls to move the NVG fore and aft, like so, as well as up and down. There is no tilt or pan adjustment in order to adjust the goggle swing out position. You pretty much have to adjust the helmet for that. It is secured to the top of the helmet, much like the old style USGI ratchet straps. However, instead of a ratcheting mechanism with a nylon strap, this actually uses what is referred to as a gummy band. It's just a big rubber band looped through the back and secured with a claw towards the back of the helmet. Attaching the LUCIE is fairly straightforward using a small dovetail shoe that we viewed earlier. And once it's clipped in, it's secured just like that. I can make my adjustments relatively easily with the push of a button, just up and down and fore and aft. Additionally, like most other NVGs, you can flip it up out of the way. However, it does sit fairly high on the top of the helmet. There's a little magnet actually located on the mount, so when you flip it up, it automatically shuts the NVG off, much like how a PVS-14 J-arm is set up for US night vision. So what I have on here right now is the Skull Crusher mount for it. It's a very inexpensive, very kind of cheaply made, but it's actually surprisingly comfortable with the LUCIE on it. The LUCIE itself being very compact means that the weight isn't super far out like you would with the PVS-14, so it actually makes this Skull Crusher very comfortable. It also helps that it has these pads here to provide support of the NVG on your face and not necessarily put a ton of strain on your head. The mount itself does flip up out of the way, flips the LUCIE completely inverted like that, and it flips back down whenever you want to use it. There is only fore and aft adjustment, so you can only move the NVG in and out away from your face. The only other way to adjust tilt and positioning is by physically moving and adjusting the headpiece. There is a vertical adjuster here, there's two side adjusters for tension as well, and the chin strap is just simply held on with a piece of hook and loop so you could adjust how much tension there is on that as well. So overall, surprisingly comfortable and good to use with the LUCIE. With iPro, however, because the Skull Crusher has limited fore and aft adjustment, sometimes the lenses will be contacting the rear of the housing and the eyepieces that you view through. But overall, surprisingly not bad for what it is. All right, so the last accessory that I have to share with today is the padded LUCIE pouch. This is in the Flectarn 5-farb or 5-color camouflage. It has a simple 3/4 inch buckle on the front with an adjustable strap to keep it secured and tight. If we flip it open, we can see in the lid that it has 2 spots for AA batteries. You can see the label that describes the pouch itself, and of course it has Thales logo on it. It's padded on all sides, top and bottom, including the lid, and is attached to a plate carrier or other MOLLE mounting platform with malice clips. I don't have them here right now, only because I wanted to pack this in my bag a little bit easier. There are other MOLLE webbing straps on the outside to mount other accessories. However, you don't very commonly see these in use that way. These are available in the 5-color and the 3-color Tropentarn or the arid Flectarn camouflage pattern that I know of. I don't know if they are available in other camouflage patterns, More than likely, there is at least a multi-tarn version, which is the German military's current camouflage uniform. So overall, the LUCIE is a really interesting way to develop a night vision product. I really enjoy these, even though they're kind of okay-ish as far as night vision is concerned. But I just wanted to share it with you because you don't see these very often. I've been Garrett with Gun Gamers, and thanks for watching.